Mr. Squidward, welcome to the night shift.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the MI6 Sports Network's late night sports talk show. That, of course, everybody, is The Night Shift on episode number 32 on this Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, a double duty of action again following the hour-long fantasy basketball draft for the MI6 Sports Network with, of course, Isaiah and the rest of the cast and crew. Getting the teams drafted for the NBA season starting up next week. But with that, folks, we are in fact joined by the fellow late night owl of the network family of hosts. That is, of course, Isaiah Leung from the home studios up there in Fremont, California, and yours truly, Callan McClurg here from the home studios in San Diego. Isaiah, good to see you, man. Just in time, though, man. How we doing tonight?
Yes, Callan, just in time. I didn't think I was going to make it today because I went Christmas shopping earlier tonight. But here I am. I'm here ready to go tonight. But, hey, it was so great. Got a lot of presents, got a lot of candy canes, even bought some eggnog for once. I've always wanted to try eggnog. I've never ever tried it actually in the past. Can you believe that? But I've got eggnog. I'm going to try it this year for Christmas, and I'll report back to you guys of how it is. But the fantasy-based basketball draft was so much fun. It was an hour of just picking players and talking about which player we picked and what our strategies were for that pick. And Callan, you know what? I came out of that draft with one sentiment, and that one sentiment is that I believe that my team is the most stacked team out of the entire draft. Because I told you, like I told Trevor during the draft show, you guys let me get Giannis Antetokounmpo, who most people regard as the best player on the planet at number 3. And not just that, y'all let me get Devin Booker with the 17th pick in the second round. And then John Morant, the guy who was runaway rookie of the year in the 4th round, and then after that, Bam Adebayo in the 5th round. It was a terrific draft for me, Callan. I honestly think that I will cakewalk through everyone in this league and march my way to my second fantasy basketball championship. I'm so confident. Like they said, or one of the Warriors players said when Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors, the league done wrong. And the league done wrong by letting me add those 4 guys at spots that I could have never, ever, ever imagined that they would drop.
Well, then again, who's got LeBron James? I know he's not going to play for a bit, but I got LeBron, I got Bogdanovich, and by the way, I have Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero as well. So, and Kawhi Leonard. So he's off on the trash talk, buddy. We're not even there. We got a week to go still before we get there. But of course, folks, the night shift is on here tonight every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday to recap all the big games, the big plays, and the big news of the sports day, given into an hour-long plus program here on the MI6 Sports Network every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday here on this Tuesday. With that, folks, we finally come to the conclusion and day number 16 of the first official round of the MI6 Sports Network deliberation that, of course, folks, is the 31 Days of Hot Takes Bracket Challenge. Again, folks, to cast your votes for the matchup tonight to finally finish off round number 1. Again, folks, visit facebook.com/MI6Sports. We'll have that poll go live for you, folks, in just a moment here. But, folks, you are voting tonight for either John Mathis against Isaiah. John said that Devin Booker is a top 10 NBA player against Isaiah in his very infamous or now famous rant about the COVID issues in Major League Baseball, or I quote from Isaiah, "If you are bored, go read a book. And if you are feeling horny, go watch Romeo and Juliet." That, folks, is your matchup tonight. And that poll will go live in just a moment here, folks, via facebook.com/MI6Sports. James Gonzalez agrees. Hello, everybody. And did Isaiah pick his boy Ball with his first pick? No, it was Giannis with his first pick, 3rd overall in the draft here today. With that, Isaiah, the big story of the day is not actually in the NBA, but it is, though, man, in college football. With about a week to go, roughly, or one more day at least of football action, the top 4 teams in the college football playoff rankings remain the same: Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and the Ohio State University. But however, though, Isaiah, reports, though, come out about an hour or so after the rankings are officially announced that there may, in fact, Isaiah, as I said, though, a couple of shows ago, man, if not last week, that there may, in fact, be a deeper look at the final standings of the number 4 spot, depending about Ohio State University, that they may, in fact, Isaiah, flip-flop and have Texas A&M at number 5 take over the 4 spot if, in fact, some things pop up. As we all know, Isaiah, that there was a very huge cloud of controversy around the Big Ten Conference, and also that they more so the controversy is with them. I know they're unbeaten, though, but still overtaking Indiana to play Northwestern for the Big Ten championship game. Now, though, Isaiah, I do think, though, that, justice may be served on a silver platter if, in fact, that they go the route of, as I said, though, to have Texas A&M perhaps be next in line if Ohio State either didn't qualify for the number of games played, with them only playing 5 before they got to the conference championship game. But, of course, they kind of, in a way, get handed that chance over Indiana. So, Isaiah, a lot to unpack here, but sadly, though, man, not sadly, but more so, Isaiah, rankings remain unchanged, though, but, though, man, a pretty big developing sidebar story, though, in regards to maybe there being some changes to that number 4 spot. Isaiah, your thoughts on the rankings, and also where do you stand, though, as well about the developments, though, involving perhaps A&M overtaking Ohio State for that number 4 spot in the college football postseason bracket?
Well, Callan, I think, let me get to your first question before I get into the rankings. I think that Texas A&M has a legitimate shot to make the playoffs when all is said and done this weekend. I don't think they're going to overtake Ohio State. I think that the team that they're going to overtake is Notre Dame or Clemson. The loser of that game, I don't believe makes the playoffs, because when you look at the strength of schedule, and the College Football Playoff Committee, I saw something on Twitter that they were ranking the strength of schedule by all the schools that were in the top 6 of the College Football Playoff ranking, and Texas A&M, besides Alabama, they have the second hardest schedule in terms of strength of schedule in college football. I think they were ranked 6th in all of college football when it came to strength of schedule. Alabama, I think, was number 3. Ohio State was number 72. And Clemson, I think, followed at, or Clemson was ahead of Ohio State. They were 60. And I believe Notre Dame was in that 60s range as well. But I think Ohio State will beat Northwestern this upcoming Saturday night. So that means I think you're going to have Alabama, the winner of Clemson and Notre Dame, be into the playoffs, and then Ohio State. And I think the 4th spot is the one that's going to be up for grabs, because let's say Notre Dame loses, right? If Notre Dame loses, they're going to be 10-1. Their only loss would be to a one-loss Clemson with Trevor Lawrence versus a team in Texas A&M whose only loss was getting thrashed by one of the best teams in college football in Alabama in, I believe it was week 6. So that's going to be a big argument or a big discussion to look forward to between either the winner or the loser of Notre Dame Clemson against Texas A&M. And if I have to put in a guess right now, I believe that Texas A&M makes the playoffs, because I think this committee, as we've seen in the past, they value SEC teams more than like Big Ten teams, more than Pac-12 teams, more than ACC teams. They value teams from the SEC more than all the other conferences. So I think when it's all said and done, I believe you will see Texas A&M make the playoff over the loser of Clemson and Notre Dame. And if Clemson loses to Notre Dame again, you can forget about a 2-loss Clemson making the playoffs, because they're going to, with the way this committee sees Texas A&M, I think that they see Texas A&M as one of the best teams in college football, that their only blemish was to an Alabama team that, let's face it, is light years ahead of everyone right now in college football. So I think it's an acceptable loss to the committee, and I honestly see Texas A&M getting in that final fourth spot to play Alabama once again. And we probably know what's going to happen. Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies will get thrashed. But hey, I want to see Texas A&M make the playoffs. It's been a long time since the Aggies were in some type of BCS conversation. So it'll be exciting to see them in. But Callan, in terms of the rankings in general, I think the committee did a disgraceful job by putting Florida, a team that was number 6 coming into last week, and they lost to an LSU team that has been struggling all year long. They lost to LSU 37-34 at home, and they only dropped one spot. Like, are you kidding me? That's so pathetic, man. An LSU team that has issues at quarterback, their defense is horrendous, their offensive line can't block, and you lose to them at home, and you only drop one spot. The committee should be absolutely ashamed for that. Florida, in my mind, should be at least in the 20s range because that was such a terrible loss, and for them to only be dropping one spot is just it's just pathetic. Other spots that I'm looking at, Iowa State, Callan, I think that the committee is extremely high on Iowa State, just like me, because if you look at when the committee was asked, right, during their conference call about why did Cincinnati drop and Coastal Carolina drop and Iowa State, they've got 2 losses. Why is those teams not ahead of Iowa State? And they were talking about how Iowa State has beaten Oklahoma. They've beaten a ranked Texas team at that time. They've beaten a ranked Kansas State team. They've beaten a ranked West Virginia team who had one of the best defenses in all of college football. And if you look at the quote that one of the committee members said, they said the reason why they love Iowa State a lot is because, number one, Breece Hall. They think that Breece Hall, the running back, is one of the best running backs in all of college football. They think that Matt Campbell is one of the best coaches in college football. And last but not least, Callan, I don't think you would like to hear this, but they freaking love Brock Purdy. They said that Brock Purdy, in their minds, is playing like a potential NFL quarterback. So you put all those things together, put all those ingredients together. The committee loves Iowa State as much as me. That's why they're in the top 6. And if they beat Oklahoma on Saturday, I don't believe they're going to make the playoffs, but they're guaranteed a spot in the New Year's 6. I would say last but not least, I really believe that USC should be in the top 10. And that might be blasphemous for a lot of people, but USC has looked really good this entire season. The Keaton Slovis is playing amazing football. Their offense is playing really well. Their defense has come on strong as of late. I know they kind of struggled against UCLA until Keaton Slovis bailed them out, but still, their offense put up 43 points. They put up over 30 in their 5+ games they played this season. USC has looked amazing this year, and I honestly believe they should be in the top 10 instead of where they are right now, which is 13.
Isaiah, I feel like, though, man, whenever we get to this part of the college football season, the last 2 weeks, roughly, 3 weeks maybe more so, there's a lot to unpack, because as soon as the playoff rankings start coming out, that's when you know it's crunch time. But to me, though, it still seems, though, I think a lot of the fans watching share the same sentiments that we both do, is that there is probably never going to be a proper way, I think, to have a proper college football playoff. Not like college basketball, college baseball, college softball, or college soccer even, is that college football, in my mind, there is still way too many flaws and way too many gaping holes in the playoff format. And this may be because of it being how it's been with the SEC, obliterating teams and dominating, throughout the course of the postseason, basically with the ACC kind of being in there and certain conferences, maybe like the Big 12, the Pac-12, not really getting teams in there. But for me, though, I would say that about this, though, again, with the rankings, folks, remaining unchanged in the top 4 remains Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and also Ohio State. I think, though, Isaiah, that even though we've heard that report, though, about maybe there being some flip-flopping going on between A&M and Ohio State, I still think Ohio State gets in, though. But I think, Isaiah, you might perhaps, your ears might perk up at this one, though, is what happens, though, if during the course of the next week or so, before you get to that the first playoff game, what do you do about COVID cases? What happens if you have a program like Alabama, for example, or anyone in the playoff mix? What happens if that school can't play a playoff game? Do you have to move the game 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I think, though, that more so for me, Isaiah, there's got to be backup plans. And I know that it may not look great on television or on the radio or on the web, but there's got to be some type of a contingency plan that's got to be, I think, cooked up very quickly by this committee, because I think that more so, along with what we already know about the 4 and 5 spot, but I think you have got to wonder, though, about 1, 2, and 3 as well, not just the 4th spot. But I think that more so Saturday may be, kind of like, doom and gloom for some schools. But I think, though, Isaiah, it may not be all doom and gloom in my mind for some programs. Like, for example, A&M, maybe a Florida, maybe someone else in the top, maybe in that 4 through 10 window. Because I think, Isaiah, there's got to be some plans in place here in case there is an outbreak, though. And I know, of course, that it's been very changing with stuff. But Isaiah, as we have seen, though, so many times, though, with games being moved at the day before, the day of the game. I mean, for example, I told this to my game ops manager on Monday at USD before our men's basketball team played Nevada, was the Tennessee Lady Vols, the women's basketball team at Tennessee, was literally minutes away, if not maybe 12 minutes away from tipping off their game with the Texas Longhorns. And their game got canceled right before tip-off because of a positive test that came up with Texas. That game was wiped out. And here, Isaiah, they traveled down to Texas, shot around, had a practice, and went through everything that they would go through on a game day just to have the game get canceled. There has got to be, I think, Isaiah, a very huge number of contingency plans, though, to get the Rose Bowl game and the Sugar Bowl game played. And if you can't have any of those 4 schools playing, you have got to have something in your back pocket, because the last thing that I think anyone wants to see, especially in a very trying time for all of us, though, is we get to New Year's Day, first day of 2021. We're yelling Jumanji, by the way, not Happy New Year's Day. We're yelling Jumanji. We're not going to say Happy New Year. But when that day comes, though, Isaiah, there needs to be plans in place in case Bama can't go, in case Clemson can't go, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Basically, Isaiah, 3 of those 4 schools, if not all 4 of those programs, they've all had some type of COVID issue throughout the course of the season. But Isaiah, where do you stand, though, about perhaps, though, maybe further changes to the top 4 in case, as mentioned, of COVID coming to the forefront?
So, Callan, you're telling me there's a chance that my guy Brock Purdy can make the playoffs and win the national title this year? Oh, hell yeah, man. Bravo. I mean,
with an asterisk next to it, though, yes.
My ears are definitely perking up. But, in all seriousness, though, about the backup plans, I agree with you. I think the college football, they definitely need to have some type of a backup plan just in case, like, either 1 or 2 or even all 4 of these schools can't play play their playoff game because they get stricken with COVID. And it has to be like next team up. That's what has to be the mindset. So I think what has to happen is you have like the top 4, right? And then I think seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8 are put in like an on call, like, for like a job. It's like you have people that are on call. Like they get someone that if like a company's very busy and they really need workers, they would just call the person that is on call to come in and work. I think that's what has to happen in this situation where seeds 5 through 8 has to be like on call just in case one of those 4 teams or a couple of those 4 teams get the coronavirus and they can't play, and then those teams can step up and fill their place in for whatever schools that can't play their playoff game. I think that has to be the backup plan for college football.
Isaiah, plenty of thoughts rolling in from the MI6 viewers. First up, James Gonzalez. He writes in to say, would love for A&M to get a shot in the playoffs, but I cannot trust the NCAA, though. I think a lot of us agree, though, with that sentiment, though, James. more so, like I had said, though, is that for me, more so, there is never going to be a perfect playoff system in my mind for college football. College soccer has a good one in place, as does baseball, softball. Obviously, basketball has worked for so many years. But I do think, though, that at this rate, is that, Isaiah, in my mind, there's never going to be a perfect system for college football because you have too many good teams that get left out every year. We had the same issue, Isaiah, with the BCS many years ago, where we had so many unbeaten teams that wouldn't make the playoffs because it was all done by computer models saying, we don't care about Oregon being unbeaten or Boise State. We want to have Alabama play somebody because, it's Alabama, SEC. And now, of course, the bracket, I think, has worked, but not to its full potential. And especially, I think, Isaiah, like we have said, though, so many times, though, in a year, though, of uncertainty and where things are changing by the second, the minute, the hour, the nanosecond, the millisecond, the day, the week, the month, you name it. I agree with James, though, that it would be great, though, Isaiah, if A&M got a shot, though. But again, can you really trust the NCAA and trust the committee, though, is the only question. I say no.
I agree with you. I don't think you can trust the committee because for some reason, I don't know, like this committee, when they sit down, I don't know if like they get drunk or whatever, because some of these rankings are just outrageous. I mean, Florida loses to a sub 500 LSU team that has been the punching bag of the SEC this entire year, and they only dropped one spot. One spot. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, that's just outrageous, man. It's kind of really like dumbfounded what this committee is about to do because every week you don't know what kind of stupid move this committee will do.
So, James, we agree with your sentiment. Tyler Work, though, chimes in with a couple of thoughts. They value the SEC team so much that Florida can lose to a terrible sub-500 LSU team and only drop one spot. Where, yet, as Isaiah said, though, he had Coastal Carolina fall by a long shot. Cincinnati fell by a lot. And here, I mean, obviously, it's biased in regards to the SEC. Tyler also adds on, they need to do away with preseason rankings. If you're a top 10 preseason team, it's almost impossible to get dropped out of the top 10. And if you're unranked preseason, you have zero shot of getting serious playoff consideration. James also says college football playoff bubble has to be a solution for the full 4 schools going in, and also that you two have great backup plans. And also Tyler says, Callan, please be careful. You only yell Jumanji if you roll the exact count to get your piece on the center space. Can we yell Uno instead, since it'll be 1-1-21? Can we do that instead? Let's just yell Uno instead of Jumanji on New Year's Day. But again, folks, the top 4 for the college football playoff rankings remains unchanged. It is Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State University. But as mentioned, though, Ohio State, though, could, though, folks, be changed out, though, for that 4th spot per reports gathered earlier in the evening on this Tuesday. Isaiah, back over to you.
I got a better idea, Callan. Why don't we just emulate the movie Groundhog Day and go back to 2020 and replay that all over again?
Absolutely not. I don't want to be pulling up to a gas station hearing that Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash. So I don't want to do that. Please don't make us relive that. With that, though, Isaiah, staying in football, but over in the NFL, reports, Isaiah, per ESPN NFL writers state, though, that as we approach the playoffs, Isaiah, the NFL will actually prohibit mandatory local bubbles during the course of the NFL postseason, per a memo sent to the clubs on Tuesday, but will continue allowing teams to use or house players in hotels on a voluntary basis. This decision is represented an expectation or expected outcome after months of public discussion about the effectiveness of the league's COVID-19 protocols and the severe impact that a delayed postseason game would have on the TV schedule and also the stadium. The league's infection rates dropped significantly this month after the NFL and NFLPA agreed to place each team in intensive protocols that limit in-person meetings and require higher levels of mask usage, and ultimately put both parties decided that the existing protocols were a safer choice. So, Isaiah, we, though, man, are going to be seeing 2 sports this year go through an entire season without a mandatory bubble. Major League Baseball and the National Football League, where yet, Isaiah, a good chunk, if not every major North American sports league, seem to get this right, but yet baseball and the NFL, of course, fall flat on their face once again. But yet, though, Isaiah, we had the NBA, the NHL, Major League Soccer, even the WNBA, 4 leagues in North America play a bubble environment, minus Major League Soccer. 3 of the 5 or 3 of the 6 leagues I listed all had no issues with positive COVID-19 tests. But yet, though, Isaiah, we are now heading though, man, for a very slippery slope where, in fact, in my mind, Isaiah, there is going to be a Justin Turner situation in one of these playoff games, and it's going to be even a worse look for the NFL for this 2020 season. Isaiah, thoughts on the memo sent to the clubs today about no mandatory bubbles for the NFL postseason, as in fact they begin operation in a couple of weeks?
Callan, this is utterly ridiculous. I think the NFL should be ashamed of themselves. They should be embarrassed. I mean, like Tyler Work said in his comment, the NFL has not cared about this virus at all. They honestly they thought that this virus was fake news when it first started happening. I mean, Roger Goodell, when asked, I believe it was either April or May, when the virus was hitting the United States of America extremely hard, Roger Goodell said, yeah, we're planning for to have full stadiums for the football in the fall. I thought that was a terrible thing to say, back in May. And, the NFL just honestly hasn't cared about this virus. It's like, oh, if someone gets COVID, let's just shut down the facility for one day and then let's move their game back a couple of days and we'll still have it go on. Or, if a team gets COVID like the 49ers, oh, yeah, let's just shut down your facility for one day, do like the cleaning that you need to do in the facility, and then you have to play on Thursday. I mean, the NFL has just been pathetic on this COVID-19 issue all season long. I'm not surprised by the stance that they're taking in regards to a bubble, because I never thought that the NFL would do it, simply because of what they've been saying all along about COVID-19. Callan, I'm not shocked by it. It's a shameful thing what the NFL is doing, and I agree with you. I think that the NFL is heading towards disaster come January in the playoffs. And, my biggest issue now is, we talked about this with the college football playoff, right? We talked about what happens if, let's say, a team couldn't play that week because they had COVID issues. Are you really going to move their playoff game back to the next week? I mean, that wouldn't work, because the next week you would have the quarter, or you would have the divisional round. Like, let's say someone in the wild card round gets COVID. You can't move a wild card game to the divisional round. It just doesn't make sense. So it's just gonna be chaos for the NFL come January. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen, because I really want to see a smooth NFL playoffs, but it's looking like the NFL is going to be heading towards disaster.
Yeah, Isaiah, this has disaster written all over it. And I think that, more so, I think back to Major League Baseball, because I know that they tried their best to let the teams play in their home ballparks. Of course, that the Mariners had issues, but with smoke, though, from fires burning up in the Pac Northwest, more so than COVID issues, that they had to move their games to San Diego and San Francisco, stuff of that nature. But however, though, Isaiah, you would think, though, and I know that it's probably a foregone conclusion that we knew, though, that baseball and football were going to be in the same boat, though. But yet basketball did it right. The NHL did it right. Major League Soccer did it right. And obviously I know about MLS having their issues, as I've said plenty of times, though. But yet basketball and hockey don't even have one single positive test over a 22-team tournament in Orlando for the NBA, plus the NBA postseason. The NHL did this with no positive tests over a 2-city bubble with 24 teams, 12 in each area, playing a qualifying round and then the regular 16-team Stanley Cup playoff format, and had no issues whatsoever. But yet, of course, Isaiah, to a lot of people out there that I think watch the NFL or watch football, football is kind of a reflection of America in my mind. Football is a reflection of America in my mind at this rate, with how we have seen, though, certain markets and stuff like that. But more than anything else, though, is that this, to me, though, just has disaster written all over it. That this is not going to end well. And obviously, like I said, though, more so, the schedule becomes even more gridlocked if, in fact, a game has to be moved because of COVID issues. Again, I would think it'd be weird to have a wild card game being played the same day of a divisional playoff game because of COVID. But I think more so, I do think, though, that the only saving grace, though, Isaiah, is that maybe not if the league doesn't require it. I would think, though, Isaiah, much like what Gail Benson, the owner of the Saints, did, she pretty much told her ball club, you are going to quarantine and be in a hotel bubble this entire season. I don't want any excuses. I don't want anything from you, I don't want any excuses from you. Go and do it, because my husband passed away, and I believe it was COVID related. I might be wrong, though, but that Gail lost her husband, Tom Benson, either earlier this year or last year, but more so that Gail took it on herself and said, look, you will do what we tell you to do. If the league's not going to say anything, we will say something about it. Isaiah, do you think, though, more so that maybe teams may actually impose mandatory bubbles for their franchise if the league doesn't, but will individual ball clubs perhaps go that route in your mind, yes or no? Isaiah, you're muted.
I think they should, but the big question is, will they do it? I think majority of the NFL won't do it, because you already have some owners, just like Roger Goodell, that they don't give a damn about this virus. Some of them still think that this virus is fake news. Some of these owners don't even wear masks at games. You've seen pictures of like some owners not wearing masks at games. So I don't think that I don't think majority of them will do it. I think you will see some owners requiring their ball club to do it, but I don't think majority of the owners will do it, simply because some of these owners, they just don't care about this virus.
I mean, I know it's perhaps perhaps wishful thinking, but of course the NFL is the NFL. Sadly, some thoughts here real quick about this, Isaiah. As mentioned, Tyler Work did in fact say it best. The NFL statement basically says we haven't really cared all season long, so we should care starting January, ? James also says, bad choice for the NFL on this, but that's expected. Yes, it is. Christy Wilson writes in to say that Goodell is a jerk. We all knew that. Also, James says that it's easy solution. AFC and NFC playoff bubbles. Again, James, wishful thinking, man, but it's not going to work. And also, real quick, that Christy wanted to correct me. Tom passed away 2 years ago. So, but more so that Gail, I do give her props, though, for at least taking that initiative. Like, look, keep me in mind of my age. You are going to go to this hotel in New Orleans, and you're going to stay there for the entire season. So props to Gail. And I'm sure Tom would have said this. I'm sure, though, Christy, if Tom was here, he would have said the same damn thing as Gail did to his ball club. And also, James says, all the teams should follow Benson's example. So simple and so smart. Again, though, James, sadly, once more, my friend, wishful thinking. But once more, everybody, per a NFL memo released on Tuesday to the clubs, no mandatory bubbles will be allowed or needed per the NFL memo. But again, teams can do so on a volunteer style basis. With that, Isaiah, some better news as we sit 1 week away now from the NBA regular season, and the Milwaukee Bucks keep their star player in Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo officially blocks out all the rumors and the skepticism of him leaving Cream City, USA. Giannis signs a 5-year, $220+ million super max contract to stay in Milwaukee until 2025 and 2026 in Milwaukee. Isaiah, I wrote this to the hosts earlier in the morning on Tuesday, that the word loyalty is very loosely thrown around in sports, and loyalty is a word that is really, I think, much like baseball, is dying a very slow and painful death because of how players are not in it for the city. They're not in it for the fan base. Yeah, it is, but it's not how it used to be, where you played for that team name on the jersey. Now guys are more enthused by playing for, the endorsements and the money and, of course, the championship rings. But I think, Isaiah, this might be perhaps the first, this is probably a stretch, though, in my eyes, but probably the first legitimate loyal player I've seen to one franchise in a long, long time. I would probably say the same about Clayton Kershaw and with the Dodgers, obviously, with a long time. And now Giannis joins that conversation in the past. Obviously, Kobe, Tony Gwynn, again, 20+ years with the Padres and the Lakers. Isaiah obviously was kills any hope of the Lakers getting Giannis anytime soon, or for that matter, any ball club getting Giannis. But Isaiah, your thoughts, though, about Giannis staying in Milwaukee And again, though, more so, man, that loyalty being shown to that city and that fan base for the next 5 seasons. And again, over $220 million with that Supermax contract for the Greek Freak to stay in Milwaukee.
Callan, as a Laker fan, we should all be partying down the street or down Figueroa Street tonight. We should all be, popping party poppers, popping champagne, just partying on Figueroa Street next to Staples Center, because this is a major win for the Los Angeles Lakers. If Giannis Antetokounmpo had left the Milwaukee Bucks, he would have not gone to the Lakers because, Giannis has said in the past that, he doesn't like playing in major markets. I don't know if that's true or not. But the Lakers would not have been able to sign Giannis also because LeBron and AD signed long-term extensions this offseason, so we didn't have the money. But if Giannis had left, he would probably have gone to either Miami, Dallas, maybe even New Orleans could have tried to get him. There would have been a lot of teams that would try to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even Golden State could have tried to make a run at Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I believe that if Giannis had left, it would have caused a major seismic shift in the NBA. Because let's say Giannis goes and teams up with Stephen Curry in the Golden State, and you have Klay Thompson coming back next year. They got Wiseman. That Warriors team would have been stacked. Let's see if he goes to Miami, with Jimmy Butler, that Heat team that just went to the NBA Finals last year. That Heat team would have been stacked. If he goes to Dallas with Porzingis, with Luka, that Mavericks team would have been stacked. So with Giannis staying in Milwaukee, the Lakers, I believe, now position themselves to win more championships in the next 5-6 years with Giannis not leaving and staying in Milwaukee. It sucks that the Lakers couldn't get him, but it also is good that other teams couldn't get him. So, the other teams could be stacked and, legitimately challenge the Los Angeles Lakers for supremacy in the NBA. So I think it's a great day if you're a fan of the purple and gold.
Isaiah, minus the fandom for a second. Again, the word loyalty is, very loosely thrown around in pro sports because you don't find athletes that want to stick it out, go through the ups and downs of a franchise who, again, like Milwaukee, in my mind, has not had a superstar player since Kareem and Oscar Robertson was there back in the 70s when they won their last title. Their only title, I think, was in 70, 71, 72, 70, 71. They won one nonetheless, though. But Isaiah, I think of this signing, though, as what I have seen in my time in San Diego. Again, with Junior Seau for a long time before he left because of ownership being obviously out of control. But like Tony Gwynn, Kobe Bryant, guys that have been with an organization 10, 15, 20 plus years, and they have to go through the ups and the downs and the long, lean years of losing consistently. And they still, though, man, stick it out. They play, but more so that they become more than just an athlete in that market. Tony Gwynn, of course, Mr. Padre, but Mr. San Diego, he represented what was, all the best with all of us here in America's finest city. And to me, Giannis is kind of on that same level as a Tony Gwynn, a guy that, again, keeps the fans involved, keeps the community involved, and again, wants to be there for that fan base. Again, the Bucks, I think, minus Ray Allen for a bit, and of course, Kareem and Oscar, there's not been a lot of star talent going to play in Milwaukee for a very long time. And here they have this very young, budding superstar. Whether you like Milwaukee or not, I think you like watching this kid play. And I am definitely on that, on that bandwagon of rooting for Milwaukee because simply of Giannis with how he plays, his attitude and how he carries himself, all the antics before the game when they do all the pro wrestling moves before they take the court for pregame warm-ups. More so, but to me, though, Isaiah, the thing that always resonates, though, is loyalty. And this move here shows that Giannis wants to be that guy that's going to remain loyal to that franchise. Again, a club that's been around for a long time, won championship, and again, a couple of star players, but no one really has been that big bona fide superstar, and he has that chance to be there for the long haul and kind of go through getting this team hopefully over that hump in the postseason. But again, I cannot be more ecstatic for Giannis. I know about maybe the Lakers or whatnot, but as someone that wants that, but as somebody who likes seeing guys stick it out and stay with one franchise for their entire career or for a good chunk of their career before they go somewhere else, to me, that's what I love the most about it. Again, Kobe, Tony Gwynn, and I think I'd have to throw Giannis into that mix, though, as well. Some thoughts, Isaiah, chiming in here on this move. Again, folks, as mentioned, the Bucks do, in fact, lock up Giannis Antetokounmpo on a 5-year extension or 5-year deal worth over $220+ million. That is a supermax contract. First up is Christy Wilson. She writes in to say, I hope that Giannis gets the help he needs so the Bucks are successful and win a championship. I do think, Isaiah, that now that Giannis is locked up, now he can exhale. Now he can start kind of putting some more building blocks around him. I like their team still. Obviously, they lost a couple of key pieces, though, key components, though, but I still like the way, though, that this team is going. I think they're probably 1 or 2 right now. Them in Miami. They're going to have some very fun battles in my mind the upcoming season. What are your thoughts on Christie's thoughts that more so that he still needs some help around him, though, up there in Milwaukee?
I know they had or they just got Drew Holiday, but I still think the Milwaukee Bucks need that other superstar to pair with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, when you look at Giannis, right, the knock on him the last few years has been he just doesn't get any help around him. Chris Middleton, he's a really good player, but sometimes he doesn't show up in the playoffs. And then you have Drew Holiday, who they just got. But I think the Bucks need now that they have Giannis locked up, I think what the Bucks need is to take their time and try to go get a guy that that can be that second star next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I like Drew Holiday, but I just don't think he's that second star around Giannis.
I would agree. There needs to be more help and not aging veterans, but more young guys that can hang and play those long minutes starting or off the bench. James says, I'm shocked but proud of Giannis for staying with the Bucks, but I hope he wins a ring or two in Milwaukee. I mean, I do too. And more, like I said, though, James, it's about that loyalty. Tony Gwynn, of course, 20 years in San Diego. Kobe, of course, 20 years, 5 NBA championships in Los Angeles. I know he wanted out, though. But so did Magic Johnson. Magic wanted out, too, of LA, but he stuck it out, though, through some of those difficult low points that they had to kind of go through pre or post championships as well. James also does say that Giannis is a different breed for staying like this, had a humble childhood growing up in Greece, but his values are clearly present. A great story about Giannis, and for that matter, his brothers, though, too, are also in the NBA with him as well. Christy also writes in, I heard that Giannis likes the city of Milwaukee, so maybe that was part of the reason he wanted to stay. Isaiah, I do think, though, that sometimes the fan base does, in fact, play a role, because I think Milwaukee, Cleveland, San Diego, they're all the same. They're all looking for championships. The Padres in San Diego, of course, Cleveland, the Indians, the Cavs in 2016, of course, the Browns trying to break all those, very long droughts of either not making the playoffs, division championships, you name it. And of course, Milwaukee, some good runs with the Brewers. Bucks have not really had a good run since the 70s. Obviously the Packers are close, but not really in Milwaukee. They played a couple of games there back in the day. But I think more so, I think that Christy's right, though, Isaiah, that Giannis, eventually, though, man, that you're going to fall in love with that city, though, once, in fact, you do, in fact, play there for a long time in your career.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you are somewhere for like 5 years, 6 years, you fall in love with that city. And I think that Giannis just strikes me as a guy that he's not, a big market type of a guy. He's a guy that I think loves being in a small market because, first of all, there's less pressure. Secondly, the media doesn't, chew you out when you have a bad game like, they would do in New York, like they would do in LA. So that's honestly why I think he stayed in Milwaukee, is because the Bucks, they've surrounded him with a pretty good team. He's had great chemistry with his teammates. You see them doing that those wrestling moves pregame. Plus, the media is not that bad on him. It's not like New York or LA when you have a bad game, they just chew you out. And I just think that he's just comfortable in a small market. So that's honestly why I think he stayed in Milwaukee.
Very fair. I think more so about that. James says, "Is there a no trade clause in the new deal?" I do not believe any type of clauses were released, but we can probably follow up hopefully on Wednesday, and we'll see what we can do there. Christy wanted to clarify for me, it is one title in 71. That was with Kareem and Oscar Robertson, though I can't confirm that, but thank you, Christy, for doing some research. She also thinks or adds that I think Giannis is a pretty exciting player. Definitely. I mean, he's one of the best players on the planet for sure, but also exciting to watch as well. Tyler also says, shout out De'Aaron Fox for sticking around in Sacramento. Isaiah, Sacramento's pretty damn close, though, too. They're pretty close. They've been building slowly for the past several years, but they're pretty damn close. And some more thoughts here real quick from James. He says, hopefully Milwaukee can get lucky in the draft and perhaps trade up to get a diamond in the rough in the near future, because nowadays you can make money off advertising and play in a small market. Again, all the endorsement deals that we see with Chris Paul, LeBron, obviously, Anthony Davis, obviously you can make that money now and play in a small market. But again, folks, big NBA news today is Giannis Antetokounmpo, again, reaches a new Supermax deal with the Milwaukee Bucks, a 5-year deal worth over a whopping $220+ million with that contract. Isaiah, finally for tonight's program, some very, I think, awesome news from the world of women's college basketball up in your neck of the woods up there at Palo Alto, California. The legendary Stanford women's basketball head coach, the one and only Isaiah, Tara Vanderveer, surpasses the late, great Pat Summitt for the most wins all time in women's college basketball history, as number one Stanford took down the Pacific Tigers in Stockton tonight, as Tara now surpasses Pat with 1,099 career victories at the women's college basketball level. Isaiah, man, obviously the Bay Area, has been known for the past several years with the Giants in baseball, the Niners having a couple of Super Bowl runs, obviously the Warriors in their dynasty over the past several years. But there's one thing, though, Isaiah, it's been very consistent in Bay Area sports, and I think you would have to agree with me, though, is Tara Vanderveer and Stanford women's basketball always playing great seasons. And I know it's been a long time since they've had their last national title, but, much like Giannis, you find, I think, Isaiah, some very loyal people like Pat Summitt, Tara Vanderveer, Gino Auriemma, Coach K, Tom Izzo, guys, people that stay at these schools and they coach 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years, and, pretty much in Tara has taken the Stanford women's basketball program. I think Rebecca Lobo, Isaiah said it best, though, during halftime of the game broadcast here tonight on this Tuesday from Stockton. Rebecca Lobo said it best, though, and here Rebecca played at UConn, played for Gino, and won like 4 straight championships. Tara Vanderveer is the reason, Isaiah, for why, for one, Stanford women's basketball has been so well known and respected for the past several years, but why the Pac-12 has become one of the better, if not one of the best conferences now in women's D1 basketball, because of Tara, Oregon's gotten better. USC has always been a very good women's basketball school. Oregon, USC, Cal for a long time was pretty good. Arizona State, UCLA, USC. Isaiah, I know, of course, that it's probably not going to be front page news, though, but obviously, Tara has meant a lot, I think, to people in the Bay Area, whether they root for Stanford or not. But again, like I say, though, Isaiah, you learn to respect greatness when you see it. And Tara, of course, 38 years. So many players have gone through her program that have played pro ball. They're now coaches. They still work in basketball somewhere. Isaiah, give us your thoughts on the, again, very awesome milestone. And I will say this, though, before I let you have the floor, Isaiah. If Coach Pat Summitt was here, and again, God bless her soul, but if Pat was here, though, I know she'd be damn proud of Tara, but she'd also say, you guys can still do better. Isaiah, your thoughts on Tara Vanderveer and her surpassing Pat Summitt with her 1,099th career coaching victory at Stanford University, and for her career, I should say, on Tuesday over UOP in Stockton.
Fantastic accomplishment by Tara Vanderveer. I want to congratulate her. She's been there for a long, long time. And here in the Bay Area, I know, like you mentioned, Callan, we've had some really great teams with the Giants, the Warriors, the 49ers have been to a couple of Super Bowls. The A's have been to a couple of playoff appearances. But, the thing that's been really constant, like you said, is Stanford always doing really well when it came to women's basketball. You could count on Stanford to be at least in either the Elite Eight or the Final Four year in and year out when it came to the NCAA tournament in women's basketball. They're kind of like, I would say they're like if I had to put like an NBA team, I wouldn't say they're the Spurs, but I would say they're kind of close to the Spurs because they've been doing this for a very, very long time. And, it's tough to have sustained success in college because, you recruit kids and then they come through your program and then 3-4 years later they're gone and then you have to do it all over again. So for her to have 38 years of consistent success at Stanford is just amazing, and I know that she's going to continue doing great stuff at Stanford, and I hope and wish her nothing but the best. This is a fantastic accomplishment by her. Congratulations to Tara Vanderveer on accomplishing or surpassing Pat Summitt for, I believe, most wins in women's college basketball.
Again, folks, very great accomplishment tonight. And I think more so for me, though, seeing the outpouring, though, Steve Kerr, Steph Curry putting out videos for Coach Vanderveer today. Obviously, her brother, or her sister, I should say, her sister Heidi Vanderveer is actually the head women's basketball coach here at UC San Diego. Of course, put a video out. Plenty of her former players, Candace Wiggins, Roz Gold-Onwude, plenty of other players put out videos to Coach, obviously with it being the pandemic going on. But again, congrats to Tara Vanderveer, the legendary Hall of Famer. Should mention she's a Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame head coach of the Stanford women's basketball program, surpassing the other Hall of Fame coach of the Tennessee Lady Vols, the one, the only Pat Summitt tonight, 1,099 coaching victories for Tara over UOP in Stockton tonight. Some small thoughts rolling in, Isaiah, as Christy Wilson first says, congrats to Coach Vanderveer. And also James says, was actually watching that game. Congrats to Coach Tara. And yes, the Pac-12 always stacked in women's hoops. So many greats. I mean, players have come through there, coaches, great teams have been through the Pac-12, and more so it's all because of Tara and Stanford's work to build that conference up. And again, we had Oregon perhaps have a chance last season before the pandemic hit, Sabrina Ionescu last season, and of course all the coaches across the sports world giving Coach all of their love and support. And again, once more, folks, but Tara Vanderveer surpassing the late, great Pat Summitt with their 1,099th coaching victory as Stanford, number one ranked Stanford, defeats Pacific from the WCC in Stockton, California on Tuesday night. With that, folks, very brief program, and I'll wrap things up for the night and head on over into tonight's Final Thoughts. Wrapping things up, folks, on this Tuesday, a very brief night here with, of course, the fantasy basketball draft, plus also a very light night on with the sports world, but again, more so news tonight on this Tuesday. Isaiah, over to you for your final thoughts for tonight's program. What do you got?
Woo, Callan, it was a fantastic day of doing programming. We did double duty tonight. First of all, I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning into our shows today. It was a blast having you guys. I want to thank James. I want to thank Christy. I want to thank Tyler Work. I also want to thank, Shardo Gupta as well for tuning in. We really love the support that you guys give us. Really appreciate it. But my final thoughts, Callan, is, I want to talk about this, little news that came out of Auburn. And as you guys know, Auburn fired their head coach, Gus Malzahn. I believe it was last Saturday, or no, it was Sunday, actually. Yeah, Sunday. And, Gus Malzahn was a very successful coach at Auburn. I think he was 68-30 in 8 years there. But, you've seen some of the candidates that have been rumored, and I'm just not really impressed with any of the candidates. Mario Cristobal, the guy from Oregon. I mean, I like Mario Cristobal. He's a good guy. He's a great recruiter, but he can't produce on the field. I mean, he's a great recruiter, but yeah, he can't produce on the field. And he's just not a big name. Hugh Freeze, the guy from Liberty, not really a big name as well. Also, the other guy that was mentioned as a front runner was their defensive coordinator, Kevin Steele. I think that's a terrible mistake by Auburn if they do it, because you're really going to fire a successful head coach for your defensive coordinator. Just doesn't make sense. I think that Auburn's administrators need to get their head out of their butt and get Bob Stoops or Urban Meyer to come to Auburn, because you do not fire a successful head coach in Gus Malzahn to get your defensive coordinator, or get a guy in Oregon who has done pretty well there, but didn't really do good the last couple of seasons. And also Hugh Freeze, you just don't fire a guy like in Gus Malzahn, get a guy from Liberty. So go get Bob Stoops, go get Urban Meyer, pony up the money, and get those two. Because if you don't get those two and you settle on either Sarkisian, Cristobal Freeze, or Kevin Steele, it's going to be a major disappointment for Auburn. And people are going to be asking, really, you just fired Gus Malzahn for him? Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how things go with Auburn. But with that, folks, my final thoughts for tonight's program on this Tuesday. As a reminder, folks, again, we'll be back with you as usual back on Wednesday with our regular WST program. But as you folks know, though, plenty of guests, though, to close out our regular programming schedule for the year of 2020. Coming up, folks, this upcoming Thursday, the one and only Mark Willard from KNBR up in San Francisco will join the program on Thursday afternoon at 12:40 in the afternoon. Again, Mark, of course, is working at KNBR 680 and 104.5 FM up in the Bay Area. He'll join us at 12:40 in the afternoon on Thursday. Then, folks, the following week, of course, the week of Christmas, coming up next Monday, Maverick Palak, Grant Cohn's assistant for all 49ers on SI, will join us at 5 o'clock Pacific time for another special program, and also talk the Oregon Ducks, who will perhaps have a Pac-12 championship in their possession come next Monday. Then, folks, on December 23rd, how about though, folks, due to a potential day of me being at work, sadly, because the game's being rescheduled, it will be the network Christmas Day special with you folks, but it'll be a multi-hour event like the last couple of special programs have in fact been. That will start, though, at 8 o'clock in the evening Pacific time. Then, folks, as a reminder, Isaiah, I'm watching you here. Christmas Eve, the 25th, and the day after Christmas. And also, wanted to clarify real quick, folks, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, and the 27th will be our network Christmas break. So we will be back with you folks for programming on December 28th. Wanted to kind of make that clarification. We were supposed to be doing programming on Sunday, but I thought, you know what? Let's take the whole weekend off and come back on Monday, the 28th instead. But once more, folks, those program notes. Mark Willard of KNBR up there in San Francisco will join us, coming your way on Thursday afternoon at 12:40 in the afternoon. And then next Monday, the 21st, Maverick Palak will join us as well on WST at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on December 21st. The network Christmas special will take place at 8 p.m. on the 23rd, and then a full weekend of no programs from Christmas Eve until December 28th when we come back on air that Monday night. Isaiah, anything you wanted to add on? What do you got for us?
Yeah, Callan, I think I heard you over there say that you will not be attending the Christmas special because you have work, because I guess they're rescheduling a game. So does that mean that when we do in fact pick games during the Christmas special, are you going to be tuning in from work to make sure I don't retract predictions like I did last week on No BS?
You better believe it. So, like I said, you're not safe watching, regardless. But even then, though, again, folks, it'll be a multi-hour event. So when my game is over, I'll be able to pop in, though, and say what's up to the viewers out there. But once more, everybody, let's run this down one more time. Mark Willard from KNBR will join us on Thursday, the 17th at 12:40 in the afternoon. Maverick Palak at 5 o'clock on Monday, the 21st. The network Christmas special at 8 o'clock Pacific time on the 23rd. And again, folks, no programming Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, and Sunday, the 27th. We'll come back and visit you folks on Monday, the 28th, back here, following the Christmas break again from Christmas Eve up until Sunday, the 27th. With that in mind, folks, we didn't have time to punch in the actual results of the poll, but Isaiah wins this one to close out round one. He won it 1-0. Nobody really voted. So congratulations, Isaiah. You close out round one and win over John 1-0. Congratulations.
A pitcher's duel. 1-0. Hell yeah.
And it was with like a bases loaded walk, probably, that the game was won with. But again, folks, as mentioned, Mark Willard of KNVR will join us on Thursday at 12:40 in the afternoon. But as usual, folks, we'll come back and see you on a Wednesday night with myself, Isaiah, and John Mathis at 7:30 in the evening to wrap up another busy day of sports on Wild Sports Talk back here on Wednesday. And also, of course, another special edition of the program on Thursday at 12:40 in the afternoon. Tyler actually says it is a walk-off balk is how you won the matchup, Isaiah. No, a balk, not a bunt, a balk.
Oh, how about a walk-off bunt?
Walk-off bunt's just as good. I'll take that too. With that in mind, though, folks, for Isaiah Leung and the entire cast and crew of the MI6 Sports Network, yours truly, Callan McClurg, wishing you a pleasant rest of your night. We'll see you back here on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. in the evening. Myself, Leung, and Mathis back here for WST at 7:30 in the evening PST. Till next time, folks, good night. Bye-bye.